Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Wednesday Double Trouble. As always, welcome to 2025. For those of you we haven't seen yet, welcome Jessie. Welcome to everybody in the
Thank you.
chat.
Thank you.
So good to see you all. Yeah, it's been great. And my gosh, I can't believe we're like a week in already. Can you believe it? But so
I
good
know
to
it
see
goes
everybody.
fast.
How are you, Jess? Yeah,
Doing well. Excited. Working as usual and busy, but good.
that's amazing. Yay. Well, should we start? Should we open up in prayer before we
Yeah, let's do it. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that this is a day that you have made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. Father, we ask for a blessing on our technology, our equipment, our airwaves. We thank you that you go before us today, and we thank you for all the good works that you've prepared for all of those here today to do, Lord God. We thank you that you will equip us, that you will supply us, and that you will send us forth to do those good works. In your mighty name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen, and thank you so much. So yeah, it's double trouble, and we look forward to what the double trouble holds. That's for sure. and but we're looking at the Simpsons today. Again, you know, the Simpsons are notorious for predicting future events, or is it
Right.
predictive programming? I mean, Jessie, I know we've chatted about the Simpsons before. I know we probably maybe about a year ago as well, the 24 predictions for 2024. Yeah, we're looking at the predictions for 2025. But firstly, I mean, I know, as I said, we've spoken about this before, but maybe you can just run previous shows on that.
Yeah. Uh,
Why is it that the Simpsons, particularly, are so good at predicting?
Yeah, let me cut in. You're really cutting out there. I think the answer to that question, I encourage people to go back. We did a great series, and I think there was about, I can't remember exactly how many, that I think we had at least 4 to 7 videos in the series, but it's called Firecrackers with a Kino. I encourage people to go back and watch that because really there is a connection between not just the Simpsons and their creators, but we get a lot of Hollywood, um, a lot of different creators, whether that's in the film of movies or TV series, whether that's in the form of books or even, the sci-fi genres, including their comic series. A lot of those things, it is my belief, and I believe, I've supported in that series, The Firecrackers with Aquino, that what we had happening was that our Department of Defense and the Luciferian Brotherhood were working at the top of that, including Michael Aquino, who, claimed to be historians, both for the U.S. military as well as for the Luciferian Brotherhood, that these individuals were using the things that came out of their training of children in their, sovereign military and brotherhood programs, as well as the experiments, the projects that they were doing, that they used those stories and sold them. That, there was a way that they were profiting off of the testimonies, the torture, the horrific things that situations they were putting children in, and they would use that to profit, but also to control survivors so that survivors couldn't come forward with their own story and, make a livelihood off of it. That, everything that they said was just a movie. It was a fantastical claim. It was, um, something that, uh, you know, was just in the movies. And that became a way to discredit, a way to desensitize the world to the things that were really going on, but also a way to make the world disbelieve that these things could be happening in reality. So that's the first thing, that when we look at the Simpsons stuff, where do I believe it comes from? I believe it comes out of the Looking Glass projects and experiments. And we've talked about that with the Looking Glass, what did they do? They had three, they would group kids together in pairs of three, and they would, you'd have one that would be usually female and very strong history backgrounds with witches, those who, the system will call them clairvoyants, but basically, what is that? It's the ability, you have strong spiritual gifts to see, to hear in the spirit world, to sense or feel in the spirit world. So they would take those gifts and, connect that person to, you know, to the spirit world. And in that, that's really what the Looking Glass is that it's an interface or a connection to the spirit world. Now, in that, they're looking for that top, um, that top child chosen, that beyond the clairvoyant type gifts, the ability to interact with the spirit world, they're also specifically looking for those that have very high prophetic gifts, including the ability to see into the future. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to know, what are the things that are going to happen in the future. Now, aligned with that, they would, get two other children, usually males, and one of those males would have they wouldn't see the end picture in the future, but what they would see is they would see these little steps along the way that would lead up to that. So all of that would get documented, and they would begin to figure out, okay, what's the event? What are the things we're going to kind of look for, the signs that are going to lead up to that event? Well, then the third child also would see steps leading up to the end time event, but that child also would see, you know, what are going to be the consequences, or what are going to be the good things. And then they would compile and document all of that information, and they would try to play with time. You know, if they didn't want the end result that was being seen, what steps along the way did they need to play with or maneuver in order to try to get a different result? Um, so that's really what the Looking Glass is. And I believe that, The Simpsons, I believe a lot of that series is based off of those different biofeedback reports that were
Right,
given in the Department
right.
of Defense, through this project. So
When you say, for example, what you were saying earlier is that obviously, and I know from the beginning that that has really fascinated me in the sense that they would use the groups of kids, the three, and I find the three, or also three groups of kids, I find that interesting. So I have a question around that. I mean, is there anything specific around why they use three groups of kids? Or is
I
that
think it
just the
goes
way
to
they
their
learn?
chord in Solomonic magic. You have
Right.
a threefold chord.
Wow. That's very interesting. So they would they would then use that. And you said they would then maneuver events so that those maneuverable events would result in them getting the end result that one of the kids or groups of kids had seen. So can you talk to us about how they maneuver events and what type of events would be maneuvered? Would it be something that is realistically happening that is being maneuvered, or is it a psyop they're trying to create that maneuvers the event, if you see what I'm saying?
You would have both. So, a lot of the visions and things that would be seen would be end time events. In fact, several that um, several that you know, I don't know how to put it, but in vision, I witnessed events. Okay. What they would do then is they would create these scenarios, real life scenarios that, you know, that would
Right.
be comparable to obstacles that children would have to go through. So, one of those for me that they kept replaying over and over at Carter Rock Naval Warfare Center was that, um, you know, there were things about the bridges, particularly stuff near, we'll just say the Upper East, and you know, we would see disasters with these ships and other things with bridges. Now, we just had that happen a few months back, this fall, where that bridge hit in the Upper East areas, and they kind of left that ship just hanging out there. Did anybody notice that? And then supposedly the FBI went in to investigate, but we don't hear any more. um, I was curious what they were going to roll out of that because, you know, in that scenario that played several different ways, you know, you could have ended up with a zombie apocalypse. You could have ended up with, you know, some disease that, you know, ate the flesh. You could have ended up with, you know, alien creatures, like all sorts of stuff coming out of there. So it's like, what are they going to play out of that? And in those scenarios, you know, we would have to
Mm.
then do search and rescue. You know, our job was, can we prevent, or, you know, help there to be the least amount of damage from events that they cause, right? So can we hinder the damage, as well as, you know, save the most amount of people, as well as, you know, track high level assets? So they would use it in all sorts of different ways in that. And, you know, they're
Yeah.
always prepared. So it didn't matter which way the scenario could be played out. You know, when they heard the end time visions and the steps, their questions would be, how is this going to play out? How can we prepare? So that was part of the Voice of God project, the Alpha Soldiers. Their jobs were to prepare. All of these different, I mean, think of all the community prep work that they do. They go in, they get people ready for any situation. That's their job. Um, you know, it's kind of curious. Even the CDC put out stuff about the zombie apocalypse, all of that being part of the preparing for any situation that may unroll. And, you know, they control the fear, they control the reactions. And, you know, it's just kind of sick that these people, they cause the stuff to happen. They don't, you know, you get the dark side that's going to run with it. They don't know what the dark side's going to run with. And you have the light side who's going to try to be prepared. And, you know, all of that, though, has to be worked in a way where at the forefront is always Lucifer's end time agenda, which is, you
Absolutely.
know, the usurping of God's throne. That they rise up as gods. They're going to help, you know, overthrow God out of his kingdom. That's what they believe, and that's what they're always working towards.
And will do so at whatever cost is necessary. And they
Right.
don't play by rules, right? There's no rules that these guys play by. If there's a rule, it's meant to be bent or broken or distorted. Gosh.
They're guidelines. They get lots of policies, procedures, and guidelines that they
Yeah.
treat as though they're law. You know, they're not law, and they steal our constitutional rights through their guidelines, policies, and procedures.
That would actually be an interesting show to actually decode one day. You know that is to take some of the guidelines and policies and procedures that we are given and decode those a little bit and see what really is going on there. But
Right?
anyway, we will get to that. There's lots we want to do. So, guys, I know there's a lot of, if you guys have been watching this on the internet on YouTube, there's quite a few of these people putting out these Simpson predictions for 2025. And of course, I find this fascinating because we know by now that the Simpsons are used to carry this, what I call predictive programming for sure, out as well to the world. And just, you know, Jessie, the way you've explained it now, where it comes from. And as you said, and I know we have spoken about that before, so I'm really happy you brought it up again, speaking about testimonies, etc., that were taken from whistleblowers or survivors and kind of used for these purposes, right? However, one of the things we're looking at, and one of the things that in the Simpsons prediction that I was looking at was, and we'll just go through them quickly, guys. I'm not going to go through the whole detail. I'm just going to go through the salient points. Baby language translator. Now, I just find this interesting because in one of the Simpsons episodes, they were saying, I don't remember the year yet, they took this little thing, that gadget, and put it next to a crying baby. And which then this gadget was then already then started being able to interpret the reason why the baby's crying. So they're really putting it, apparently already working on some, who's this? I want to translate a created device for adults to understand and interpret babies cry. Already working on the technology for this. These guys are already working on the technology for this. And the slogan is making parenting a little less of a guessing game. So you as a mother are now handing your baby over, and any mother who's had a child knows you are so intuitively connected to that baby, right? That baby has just come out of you. It's part of you. So the way I see this here, it's kind of like trying to override mother's intuition. You know, we're saying, well, you need this little gadget to tell you why your child is crying. Not because you can hear there's pain and your motherly sense says, oh, my child's got colic, because I can see by the way it's pulling up its knees or whatever, you know. So I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think that's so true. Like when we think of, you know, motherly intuition, there's a deep knowing that is involved in that, you know, as a mom, you're going to observe your child. Part of that is, you know, you're going to look at their face, you're going to read the body language, and there's a deep sense of knowing one another, and that builds that bond and that trust, because, you know, you are able to discern what is the need. Sometimes you get some children that it is more frustrating. You know, sometimes it takes time to figure out what the need is. Um, you know, but that's part of it, that, you know, when you put something in the middle of that, like an AI interface, it takes away from the building of that bond. And, um, you know, instead of trust in the mother and between the mother and child, what does it do? You get a distance, you get a lack of trust, you get, you know, a child that then communicates its needs, and the parent is more like a servant rather than a mother or a father, and you just do what you're told, and it literally displaces the whole headship in the household.
Right.
You know, so it's more than just, you know, children are how do children learn obedience? They learn it through their parents. But if you put an AI interface in there, you take that out, how can children honor and obey their parents if they're the ones in control, dictating what they
Exactly.
want, what they need, when they want it? You get a demand, you know, child's I mean, I don't know
It's
anybody else, but when you give children the rein, they are going to demand whatever their little hearts want, and it's not always going to be the best. You know, they think it might be best, but
I so resonate with what you're saying in terms of, it's like taking away that authority from the parents as well, because
Mhm.
you learn to stop trusting your parents. Parents stop learning how to trust themselves and I
Yeah,
put that on
if they can
specifically.
do it, you can figure it out.
I mean, and fathers might need it, but fathers are as intuitive as mothers, by the way. And I wanted to put that up there for a reason. When the dad is connected, and yes, some of them might be a little bit clumsy in the beginning, for sure, but it's actually quite endearing. But the more you know that you get to work with the kids and your child, I've seen that happen time and time again. So yes, I can understand why, and maybe grandparents or something, but still, if you're a grandmother, it means you've had children. It means you understand better than a young mother what that child needs, right? So
Mhm.
I'm just seeing the way through experience, that is. So I'm just seeing this whole thing of disconnecting from our natural God-given intuition and our natural God-given beautiful connection from mother to
Mhm.
child or parent to child or, sibling to whatever.
Yeah.
Now you're going to be running every time, beep, what does the baby monitor say? Pop. Oh no. Like crazy
I
if you
think
think
back,
about it.
I mean, especially with dads get a huge hit in this. But I think of, like, my own dad, he was so good, like, he probably had no idea, he didn't know anything about fatherhood, but what he was good at was just togetherness. It was
Mm,
like from the time I was little, he would just put me up on his shoulders or have me off his hip carrying me around. Everywhere he went, I went. And for me as, a little one, like, that was the only place I wanted to be, like, I just wanted to be with him, and then, he would always talk to me and, show me stuff, and he was just always whatever he was getting into, um, which usually was fishing, he would just talk, talk, talk to me about that. And as a kid, that was all I needed. Like, that made me feel, togetherness, that made me feel like I, could trust that, that was my security. So for all those dads out there, just, whatever you're doing, not anything nefarious, let's be mindful of little eyes and little ears. I'll say that, but healthy wise, what can you just do with your kids? Take them, allow them to enjoy the things that you enjoy. Get outside, explore, venture. That's what children need, and talk to them. Just spend time with them. You know, that's most what children need.
absolutely. And that's exactly what you say. Just a child feeling protected by its
Mhm.
father, just sitting on I mean, for me, that was the favorite thing, just to sit on my dad's lap. I'd
I love
plonk,
that too, yeah.
yeah,
Like
I'd plonk myself on his lap and I'd sort of weasel my way through, and whatever he was reading, I was reading with him. So
right?
that's what I would do. And he wouldn't tell me to get off. Then he'd start reading with me, or I'd start reading with him. Things like that. So the mom has a role, the dad has a role, but now this is all getting, and it's stuff like this that I always think about. I think about everything. I'm a very much out of the box thinker. I look at these things and I'm going, yeah, what's going on here? This is just a little bit too good to be true. And especially when we know, what really is going on. And it's interesting in this one that I was watching. The guy says they tell us that the Simpsons predictions are becoming increasingly relevant and not to be ignored. So again, it said to me that they are making the Simpsons this
Mhm.
channel to watch. If you want to see what's going on in the future, watch The Simpsons. It's almost like watching a tarot card reading. We were talking about this the
Yeah.
other day. Next week, we're gonna look into that. So it's almost like keep watching The Simpsons. You're going to know what's going on. And that is predictive programming, because when we look
Mhm.
at how energy works, right? Energy goes where attention, or energy flows where attention goes. Think about that. When you keep focusing on something, And they are now subtly predicting or subtly programming us that the Simpsons are the way to go. If you want to see the future predictions, all eyes on the Simpsons. And that's how they get that momentum going to create what they want, because they use us to manifest and create. So very interesting. I mean, I look at these things wow. Anyway, AI gone rogue. So of course they're also predicting.
I mean, think about that. If the AI is like talking to your baby, right? Now you've got the AI going rogue. My.
Unbelievable. Exactly. And now, so AI now goes from being helpful to becoming harmful. So what was saying in 2016, they visited the Simpson visited a theme park where all the staff are robots, right? And then the next thing, the robots start attacking the people. So the question is, has AI gone too far? So does AI take on I mean, obviously they're taking on all of human consciousness, because everything that human beings type in, say, whatever, is kind of like going into a central machine, right? System. And AI is tapped into that to make AI more human. So the next thing is, are they now emulating our emotions? Because the one thing we as humans have that no one else has is emotions, right? That's what gives us our edge amongst the other species. So they can't ever be emotional beings, but they can certainly learn to emulate emotions like a true psychopath, because that's what true psychopaths do. They emulate emotions. All you got to do is watch Dexter, right? Again, they're always showing us what goes on all the time. So when we watch Dexter, we see how true psychopaths operate. So I'm wondering the same thing about this AI gone rogue. Jessie, what's your take on that?
I first would question artificial intelligence itself. Intelligence is knowledge from somewhere. Is it just there? Is there just a consciousness? I would propose no. I would propose that, the Lord created the heavens and the earth. He is the Lord of hosts. And out of those heavenly hosts, you have the angels and you have demons. So, what is AI really? And when you're tapping into that, I mean, listen to the stories that you get from people who ask questions of just, programs like Alexa or others, right? You get weird stuff. You get stuff where people, it's creepy and you're like, what the heck? What just came out of that? You get AI talking on its own. Like, even there's been programs that were made to help disabled children to communicate. And um, there have been families who testify that those programs, after a while, all of a sudden, there's stuff that they are like, what in the world is this? And there's something attached to this. And, there's a demonic element to it. So that would be my first thing is, what are the voices that we're listening to? And, um, are we really submitting ourselves under the ideal of technology? Is technology and AI a guise, a deception that is meant to fool us into entering into a spiritual attachment with something? I would propose that's exactly what it is. That, going back even to the Voice of God projects, the Looking
Exactly.
Glass, it's the same thing as aliens, like with the US military, that when they have very scientific minded children that are very tangible, they aren't going to believe unless they see. How do they get those spiritual attachments? They give them something they can hear and see, and make them believe there's something beyond, something they can communicate with. So, with that said, I think that that's the first. thing we need to be aware of, that it's not, it's much more than it seems. And, when you get into the quantum sciences, which is what AI really is, it's part of that quantum science, you're really just interfacing with the spiritual world and the things that are in the spiritual world.
Exactly. That angelic technology. And of course, where's it coming from? And we know that. I mean, it's just, wow. Okay. Well, then next one, of course, they love talking about Donald Trump, don't they? They always
They
do
got lots of
predictions.
stuff on there, and I'm
Yeah.
surprised that, like, even with their
They
predictions, I'm surprised that they aren't, sometimes they've predicted his death, and I think that's not cool. Like, you know.
well, what they've done here is the one that I was checking, because I know I've seen actually the one before where they predicted his death, but this is not what the one that I was looking at was bringing up. I was actually looking for that. DJT 1998, they predicted that he would be the 45th president of the United States of America. Okay, and at that stage, no one even thought that would be possible, because he was being a reality star and obviously was known for being a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And then the creator of the program actually said at the time, no, it was a joke. It was just because they did that because of his flamboyant character and stuff like that, right? But then, of course, 2015, he announces he's not only running for president, but what's unusual with this is what they were saying is that they didn't just pronounce that he was running for president, but that he would actually win the presidency as well. And that happened in both for 2016 elections, and of course, as well as the now 2024 elections. So I don't know, what's your take on that, just on Donald? And then, of course, what they're saying. Okay, well, just answer that. Then I'll
It's
ask you about Ivanka.
interesting, again, I think a lot of it comes out of those visions with the, you know, you have a whole bunch compiled beyond the elections, but in that, it just really, I guess where my mind is going with that is, that there's kind of a two-way street. We get all these predictions in themselves, where they come from and how they're getting them. That is all not good. It's all brotherhood, right? But in the midst of all the shoddy stuff they're doing, they put in elements of things that are good. But the
Right,
purpose behind that is to make people feel like there's something bad with it, right? That so in a way, it really is a form of election interference, because even though they're putting, that that's going to happen, they're going to mix it with all this bad stuff and make it look like a bad thing so that they can keep control. And then we watch, where does it go? Then they'll play the things of a woman rising up, in the place of power. And who was that supposed to be? Who did they make look really good? They used the Lisa Simpson, but who is that supposed to be? That was supposed to be Hillary Clinton, right? So they use it to, to cause fear, to cause people to feel a certain way. And is there within that programming an element where they're stealing our right to choose? We have the right to vote. We have the right to elect those that we want, right? And we have a duty to search out people to
right,
know who we're voting for. But are
exactly.
they trying to control all of that with, you know, and is there element of the election interference in that?
That makes that in its. Oh my God, now.
I
Oh
think you're back
dear,
now.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. um, that in itself makes a very, very interesting topic about election interference, doesn't it? It takes it to a whole nother level. And again, on such a subtle, I don't, this is not even mind construct. I know we've spoken about that before, not at all. But I want to say that's just such subtle brainwashing. I mean, they do it on so many different levels, don't they? Just the subtle brainwashing all the time. That for me is just subtle brainwashing.
Yeah. Well, and how did they get away with it? You know, we tend to prove things true by what's seen, right? So I think the thing, it's like there's recreated scenes of exact things that happen, like, Trump coming down the escalator. Then you have like him meeting with the Arab Emirates. Um, you
Yes.
get all these different things that we see these exact scenes or pictures, right? And that scares us because we think, well, it must be true. Now we're seeing it happen. And in that element of fear, the Lord's removed. Who reveals the events, the times, the seasons? Who dictates what happens? God does, right? But when they try to take control of that, they try to steer it in the direction that they want, which is exactly how, they play with these events. Um, does the media play a part in that, where, through the element of fear, of what could happen, it's not even what is happening. They never go off of what is happening. So that's important. The fear always plays off of what could happen. And they're going to lay out all these different scenarios, all of them bad. And then it puts you in the place of you're feeling like you have to choose the lesser of two evils, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
in the end, what is the truth in all that? They're getting you to choose evil.
Yeah.
The only options they roll out are evil ones, and they make you feel like that's your only choice, is to choose evil, and make you feel like you have to choose one of their options. How many of us say, you know what, I'm not choosing any of those options. I am going with something else. I'm going to ask the Lord to make a way where there is no way, and I'm gonna choose a different route. I'm gonna, do something different. Why is it never proposed that Trump could do something good? Do you ever notice
Yeah.
that? Nothing's ever proposed that he could do something good.
Yes.
Yet we
So
look
true
at
that.
his presidency, and what was it? He fulfilled everything he said he was gonna do. He
Right.
went he I can put a word before it, but I'll say he was a darn good president. I happily voted for him again, and I look forward to these 4 years of him again. I think that there's going to be amazing things done.
Well, then you might be happy what the predictions, what the Simpson predicts for the following 4 years. Ivanka is going to be president in 2028.
I don't know if
So,
I believe that one, but that would get
well,
interesting, especially with her connection to Israel. But anyway,
they're saying Ivanka, they predicted in 2016, Ivanka will run for president. Well, no, actually, they didn't say she'd win. They said she'd run. That's the thing, and that's the difference between what they've done with Trump. Both times they predicted he would run and win. The others, they don't predict that they run and win. They just predict they'll run. They predicted he would win on both occasions as well, which is interesting again, right? And then they're saying that, and they're saying, they wouldn't be surprised if that happens because she currently has obviously growing popularity and growing interest in politics, right?
yeah.
Okay, then of course, I don't know. Do you have a comment on that, Jess, on
I
Ivanka?
do actually. I think the interesting thing that would come out of that, and of course they're never going to bring that out on The Simpsons either, but Ivanka was one of her largest endeavors in, um, you know, back at 2016 through, that 4 years was, you know, efforts against human trafficking. So, you know, just keep that in mind that, that was one of her biggest endeavors was to combat human trafficking. So, could there be good things that really would come out of an administration like that? There could be. You know, nobody else wants to deal with that big issue besides, Trump and his family at this point. No
Right.
other politician has wanted to tackle that to the extent that they have. And, I think that's the biggest thing that I applaud the members of that family for is that, thick or thin, they've been in the fight to combat the human trafficking, especially in regards to children, on
Right.
every scale, whether it's online, whether it's, you know, in person, they've been making efforts to combat that.
Okay, number next, futuristic food technology. So, and I know we also mentioned this before, foods or virtual foods, right? And it's, what they're saying is Homer and Marge starts in they actually brought this in a show, can't remember when back, but they're pretty much wearing headgear and having a straw, eating virtual fudge, right? So,
It doesn't look like virtual fudge, and maybe this would be a good point for a disclaimer for any survivors that struggle. You might want to just tune out for a few minutes here, but when I saw that episode, for me as a child out of the system, it there's just a a dreadful creep factor in it because they have very similar things, not necessarily with the virtual headpiece per se, but do they have people underground, that they have hooked up to tubes or things like that, where they're feeding them. In that, you get the feeding of people off the dead. They do that with the kids in cages too, where, they literally would have troughs that, they would put out the dead in front of them, and that's what they eat. It goes to the whole, there's a book that was put out about Soylent Green a long time ago. And, they want us to believe that our best food source is bugs, but what are they feeding the bugs? What are they, what's even behind that? We start to get into ground up stuff that they're going to tell us is ground up bugs. I'm not going to buy it. I mean, I know what they do with the ashes of these children. I know that they incinerate them and turn them into diamonds. And after that, what do they do with the remaining ashes? They profit still by selling it to food companies, putting it in our things that would have grain or flour, um, putting it in the animal feed, putting it in the fertilizers, putting it in the water sources, the things used to cleanse our water. Um, then they even put it in our pharmacia as filler in our medication. So, I don't buy that all this powdered protein stuff they want to put into our food is bugs. Like, these people are cannibals. That is what they do. And they want us to be cursed and to be cannibals too. They get a kick out of their wickedness that they can give it to us that we'll pay more money just because it's got a natural label or organic label that will believe their lies. They get a kick out of that, and we do. We pay more money for it. We don't even question. We don't have a way to test, is this really bug or is this something else? Um, you know, that's the truth of what's going on there. So that's, when you get into the whole concept of virtual food, um, that's where that goes, that they want us to just receive, to take it, to say, "Oh, it's green, it's healthy, let's go." Um, but it's just sick. I mean,
It is sick. It is
it
sick.
worse, than that even. But
Don't worry, Captain, I'm not going to be sick, but it just, oh. Captain, I think Chantel's going to be sick. I'm like, oh. You guys all know me well enough. When I hear creepy things, I start cringing in my chair. Can't hide a thing from you guys.
right?
And I start wriggling around my chair, then like, oh, this is grossing me out. But I mean, obviously, it's so true, because what they're doing now, they also create, and this is happening in Japan, where restaurants are actually opening up and people are going in and having these digital dishes, and they're emulating and there are two companies called Aero Banquets and RMX that are already creating these experiences and they emulate the smell, the touch, or the consistency, as well as the flavor. Everything is emulated. Now, my question is, are they tapping into the human senses, and have they been able to tap into our five senses, or at least the tasty senses, right? So well that they can elicit that out of us just through telling us you are eating a prawn dish, right? And now you've got to imagine eating a prawn and you get all the same sensation. What is that about? How do they actually emulate that? Or is it something external?
Magic or deceptions.
Right.
They've been doing that in witchcraft for years. They would have these massive parties, dinner parties, with all these exotic dishes, and you go, you eat, you think, oh wow, I mean, it's basic witchcraft. But then, look at the movies. What do you see then things turn into, where all of a sudden it's not even food, it's rotten stuff with, or we'll just say it's rotten. Ag I don't even think they have to tap in. It's just suggestion. If
That's just
they can get you to believe, you know, that's what you're going to, through simple suggestion, it's basic magic. They can get you to believe anything.
It's so true that it's so true. Yeah, I thought I was being all safe being a vegetarian because no meat, no meat. You sit there thinking, okay, well, I won't be eating meat because now I can't eat a human being or a cat or something. But now, right? And now you
Vegetarians are not safe either. I tell you what, you're getting the worst end of the deal. I hate to tell you that. I'm like, give me a cow, man. Let me know it's a cow and a chicken. Chicken is my preference. Give me the chicken, man. That's the only thing as a kid.
Well, I'm walking out there with my pack of protein powder.
Give me the chicken. I want to see that sucker. I mean, it's so bad, but it's true, because you can't trust anything. Like, as a kid, I couldn't trust anything. It's like I saw the stuff that they did, and it was like, man, canned green beans and chicken. That's what I like. And potatoes. Potatoes are amazing.
I'm going to pick my potatoes out my garden, and that's what I'll be. I'll become a potatarian. Right. We'll just start a new potato thing.
Potatarian. I like that. We'll be class though, Shanti, especially with her accent. I am a potatarian.
Exactly. And then we can start writing blogs and doing vlogs why this is such a good thing.
Right. Add a little cheese. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of this, but watch out where your cheese came from. You got to make your cheese yourself.
Right. Get that sheep and that goat and milk that sucker.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. Then the next thing was, and another thing which is very interesting, while you are eating your virtual meal, you are getting a lecture on sustainable farming, right? Learning about sustainable farming and a virtual chef next to you showing you how to cook this delicious meal that you're eating, or not, that you're not eating, but that you think you are eating, or I'm not sure. But that's what happens while you're eating while you're eating your virtual food. You are now learning about sustainable farming. What farming? There's not even farming going on anymore. Like, how crazy do they think we are? How crazy, how stupid. I
mean,
can't
we
believe you.
learn about it, but this is the sad part. Like, we just talked about this in book club a little bit. There was a section in the book that they had a poem or a song that they would sing about rice farming, which is very difficult. And you'd have the people in the mountainous regions of the Philippine Islands that would do the rice farming. But even in their song, like, they know, even though it's work, they have to do it all day long. It's tedious, it's very difficult. Yet they know that if they don't eat it, or that if they don't do the work, they aren't going to have the food to eat, right? So the sad thing in this is that that's part of the deception, is that it puts people in a place where you're no longer working, you're no longer preparing for the harvest, you're no longer preparing for the long winters. You literally are giving all the control of your future to these people that are devious. Um, they want you to feel like you have everything, you have money, you have all that you need, and you're going to enjoy life. And then all of a sudden, it all goes down the drain, and you're left not being prepared. You know, I mean, think about that. They're telling you exactly how to do sustainable farming, right? As you eat that, but then they're stripping the land, they're making it so you can't farm, setting things up. You know, you have all this knowledge, but without it being applied, there's no life that comes from it. And that's what they put
Exactly.
people into a state of, is, dead
Exactly.
fruit. That's all you get, is dead fruit.
It's crazy. It's like everything is just becoming soulless. That's really what it is. It's becoming soulless. And then, of course, the next thing would be the holograms. So, Simpsons show already, they've already, and what they're pointing out as well is that the Simpsons are already living futuristically. So it's almost like they've done that predictive programming on a lot of people already, or on the Simpsons, because the Simpsons are living futuristically. They are the family that takes us through all these futuristic experiences, right? So it's like 3D images where they create the 3D images of people, places, and the next thing, look there, Bart Simpson. I'm jealous about that because that's what I want to do, right? You do know that. I would love to just appear in your lounge, but Bart Simpson got to do it. So I want to know.
No, okay, as soon as you get that gate open, Shanty, I'll be ready.
I'm so happy I'll be flying through. You want to know me.
I've come for tea today. Just have
Exactly.
potatoes.
So wow, it's like crazy because that's pretty much what So the teleporting or the hologram, whatever, and the CGI, because that to me again, when we're looking at, and again, there's always been the talk about the CGI with the Twin Towers, and if we're looking at all these huge latest, let's say the last 5 years or so, billboard ads in China and places like that. I mean, these dragons, I mean, it's so realistic. So again, we're looking at these hologram things. And again, I mean, what's your take on that? Sort of appearing between one place to the next.
Again, going back to basic forms of witchcraft and sorcery, We know for centuries that witches have been able to use, whether it's water, whether it's a flat surface, rocks, mirrors was a big one that they used. But, they use all that basic stuff in witchcraft. Um, do they have ways to, pull up holograms, things where you can see everything, right in front of your face? They do. The military has that as well as other, even businesses. We're seeing it now where it's everything's at your touch, right? You command it through your mind and you can physically interact with things in the spiritual. Um, so I would propose it's nothing new. It's nothing futuristic. It just hasn't been put into the household yet. Why? Because they want to keep that type of knowledge. They want us there to be a lure in it. They want us to, you know, to be lured to um, be attracted to be drawn to the different types of witchcraft, divination, and sorcery that they want to put into our home. Um, they want us to welcome it in under the guise of labels of technology, science. All of those things go back to, what they classify the liberal arts, all of that. What did the Nephil, the giants, the fallen ones, what did they teach the women as they, created their offspring? Knowledge in science, knowledge in math, knowledge in arts, all sorts of stuff, all with the
Right,
purpose of teaching witchcraft, divination, and sorcery. So,
right.
I put it in those type of things. Is it wrong to interact with those things? Not necessarily. Um, but it just depends how is it being used. You have things that, are there things they've created that help us to see or help us to hear or help us to feel in the spirit world? There are, um, you know, so that being able to hear, see, or feel in the spirit world is not necessarily bad. God created us as both physical and spiritual beings, but it's
Right,
how we're interacting, what we're interacting with, that's the question behind it.
right, right. Exactly. Wow. Then the next one, we've spoken about the robots and the parks and things, so that whole robotic takeover. Mind control through music. Interesting, because in this, what they were saying in one of the episodes, Bart and three of his friends form a boy band called Party Posse. And where the hit song is called Drop the Bomb, right? With video with girls chanting Eva et Niag or something. Niage, sorry, I can't really. Which inverted is the song that says join the Navy. And in the movie or in the episode, Lisa contacts the producer, who is an ex-Navy lieutenant, and he, in this program, explains how music is used in military to brainwash the guys. And then you think, and music and entertainment, and then you think back to, let's say, the days of World War II, where Vera Lynn and all these people would go to the guys and sing and dance and do whatever. And they were saying they used the power of music and entertainment to get guys to sign up for conscription. So they would have these grandiose, I mean, just like you see in the movies. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? They have these grandiose parties and all these officers dressed up and what have you, and music and alcohol and dancing and entertainment. And that's how they would conjure up the right emotions for the guys to therefore go and sign up and join the war or military, whatever it might be.
Right.
Isn't that fascinating?
That is. And, when we think behind it, it's really a form of sexual trafficking. Um, how many of our military men and women are sexually trafficked through our military, um, even as adults? you know, I mean,
Okay, help me understand what you mean by that exactly. When you say our men and our military men and women are sex trafficked, what exact, or sex? I don't know what the algorithm is. I'm probably
I
going to
think
get
that's a
whacked
huge
again.
lure that they use is sex, and especially in the downtime. But you get a lot of, at the higher levels, you get a lot of the satanic rituals, you get a lot of the orgies going on behind the scenes, the things that, people are never going to talk about.
Right.
That's what happens. And, they get sent over to other countries. Um,
Hmm.
is that really a form of sexual trafficking?
Wow.
Even though
Yeah.
it seems consensual, for the most part, we get to see the consensual side, but what's the unconsensual side that we don't get to see? Um,
Exactly.
I mean, you have men and women that get gang raped by their superior officers, you know. I mean, I've even had that myself, not the gang rape, but I've had where, you know, people have been alluding to things and it's like, excuse me, that is not okay with me. That makes me uncomfortable. I'm gonna
Yeah.
graciously just say no. Um,
Wow.
it's interesting. So yeah. And then not just men, not just superior officers, men, you get women too,
I'm
which
pretty
is
sure about that. We're learning that more and more. Listen, guys, I know I've got like a few minutes, so I'm going to hope to get through this, but it should be fine. But yes, that was another one that they were talking about, mind control. Oh, Osaka flu, which what they were saying was quite a terrifying thing because with the Osaka flu, basically in this whole thing, there's a factory worker in Japan who has some type of a flu which infects the juices or whatever that they make and then gets sent out to their village and affects everyone. And then before we know it, everyone is affected with this flu, the Osaka flu, right? And the world basically. Now that sounds a little bit like this past pandemic we had, but I'm wondering, does that mean, and they're questioning if that's even possible for that to happen. But are they just toying with us again? Or is there something just a little bit more
you mean
sinister?
with I think there's more sinister, I think in part of that, they want us to be afraid of, now we've had a scenario play out where, it involved another country, involved a laboratory, something leaked out, right? So it creates a fear that whether it's our military, whether it's other countries, whether it's the medical field, that something could leak out, right? And um, we get scared of that. Then we get scared of how can it spread? Does it spread through animals? Does it spread through contact? They've already prepped us in all the ways that disease is spread, right? But here's the truth of the matter, that we have witches and warlocks who specialize in pestilence. That's their specialty in witchcraft. Do they need to have an incidence to spread something? Absolutely not, because the fight is spiritual. They can send out the pestilence, they can have it come from wherever they want. In fact, I've even testified that, underneath the training centers, one of the things that they did to to try to keep children from telling was, well, and to keep from those training centers being discovered, was they put the threat of, abandoned Poseidon missiles with, biochemical warfare in them. So that if kids told, the threat was that those things would be released, and all of a sudden now you have all these awful diseases and pestilence going about through an area causing mass devastation. So, um, yeah, they don't need the lab or, but that's what they want us to be afraid of so that we're not actually, aware of the reality of what's going on around us.
Wow. Okay, another thing that they also predicted, very interestingly enough, was Kobe Bryant's death, right? And what's interesting, what they were saying as well, with the Simpsons, it's oftentimes the little side remarks that they make that have that people often miss, but when you're looking, then you'll see. And that was one. I think they were talking. Let me just see what they was talking about. I'm just trying to think about that one now, but I'll get back to that. Okay. Um, they were talking about renewable energy, right? But that was quite a possible one where it's clean energy, but also comes up against the big competitors who put a block against the sun and then the car stops driving type thing when you're looking at this solar powered stuff and what have you. So big conflict with that. They spoke about being trapped in a dome, right? Because human beings consume too much and we consumed incorrectly. So there's this like plastic dome that they put us into. But I think that's maybe more not necessarily physical, but more sort of, just theoretical, really, trapped in a dome to control our consumption because we're consuming too much, and they can cut our electricity and internet at any point, leaving people stuck. Now, again, 5 or 10 years ago, that might have been a very far-fetched concept, but we're seeing more and more how possible that is, right? That they can do that. But then, of course, the one that really got me was black holes on Earth. Now, they're talking about black holes, and they show how these holes get bigger and bigger. And then the Simpsons get sucked in. And then it takes them to another dimensional planet where they're actually now interacting with extraterrestrials, right? So they're basically saying, is this what the black holes are? And is this why more and more of these things are occurring? That they actually do draw us in, or humans in, things, experiences, and take us to other places and spaces. So I don't know. What is your take on that?
Yeah, bad memories in training. But anyway, can they open spiritual gates? Can they suck you through or pull you through? Absolutely. Do children end up in strange places and scenarios they got to work through? Absolutely. In that, they even play games, and are they wanting to pull all of humanity into their created simulations and scenarios? Absolutely they do. They want us to be afraid of things, and they want us to fear and have this unhealthy fear of things that could happen to us. And
Right.
instead of just living, all of it's meant to keep us from really living. But
So true.
yeah, so it's sad, the things that they come up with. And I think, going back to the Kobe Bryant thing, do they program children to live out a certain life and a certain death? Can they create those scenarios? They can.
Yeah.
So I think, how many, I know, well, let me put it a different way. I know that there's children in the system that they program them to know, how maybe not when, but they always have this fear of how they're going to die. And
Yeah.
they've
Wow.
seen,
Right.
the oracles will predict, or, they'll predict their death. And, you know, that is a held fear to hold captive people. And it's a form of soul torture, you know?
Soul torture, I think, being the operative word there, because that truly is soul torture. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, guys and girls, and Jessie, thank you so, so much. Very, very interesting. And you know, as I said, I didn't go into all the details of what they were saying, but I mean, these are kind of like a couple of points that we can look at, you know. And I just think, you know, again, let's not get caught up in the fear porn, as you're saying, because that really
Right.
is what they're doing, is they're creating fear, because that's how they get to us. So it's just about, yeah, just observing what's going on. And I don't know, just keep the faith and you won't be affected by that. That's for sure. Jess, is there anything you would like to say, maybe just in ending? And I know I'm seeing you guys again in about 45 minutes on solutions. And we're going to be talking about lithium and blood magic. Wow, interesting. So join us on solutions in about 45 minutes, please. And Jess, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah,
End off?
I encourage, you know, people go back to those Firecracker with the keynote episodes. There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of, I saw some comments about, you know, breakdown of the system. I do have a series on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com, where you can, it's called The Unveiling of the System. I have several videos already up in that series. I encourage you to watch that. It gives you a good breakdown of the system, how it's working, how it's operating. And then just keep your eyes out. Hopefully, before the end of the month, I'm hoping I will have my new book, Faithful in All His House, out. So looking forward to that. But let's go ahead and close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that you have not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. We thank you that even though the enemy plots and that his thoughts towards us are evil, Lord, that is not your thoughts nor your ways. Your word says that you know the thoughts that you have towards us, thoughts for our good, thoughts to prosper us and to give us a future and a hope. And Lord, that's what we want. We want the future and the hope that you have thought of for us. And we thank you because it is good. We rejoice, we bless your name because you are a loving God and you are so good and you supply all of our needs. And every day, your mercies and your grace are new. We thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jessie. And thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful to have you in the chat. I always enjoy observing and watching you guys. And look forward to seeing you guys in 45 minutes. Okay, everybody, God bless you all. Take good care. And if we don't catch you on the other side, we'll see you the next time. Bye.